Do you have a plan for what to do if you stumble upon several $1 million? It's good to have such, especially if you're playing the lotto. You can't imagine how wealth can surprise people, and it's no wonder many got right back from where they started just several months after they became ultra-rich. Dealing with massive amounts of money is no joke, and if you don't plan ahead, you may end up on a list like this one. And you certainly would prefer to stay as far away from a list of the dumbest lottery winners, right? So, just in case you're wondering what not to do, let's have a look at the 11 saddest people on the entire planet who wasted their fortune in record time. Jose Antonio Cuauhtoc. Jose Antonio Cuauhtoc is a Guatemalan who went on to seek his luck in the good old US of A. Unlike most other illegal immigrants, he actually found his fortune in the form of a lottery ticket. Admittedly, the prize was not as high as others, but still, $750,000 is a very nice start in the US, one that many locals can't afford. However, as he was illegally in the land of the free, which sounds a bit paradoxical, Toc was worried that if he were to claim the prize, he would face justice and deportation. And, well, that happened. But not without some additional extra twists. To avoid responsibility, Jose asked his boss Eric Cervantes to get the money for him. Unfortunately, Eric had nothing to do with Miquel de Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote, a brave, noble, and a bit crazy hidalgo. The boss claimed the money and took it for himself. Backed to the wall, Jose Antonio started a legal case against Eric, and thanks to footage that he bought the ticket, he actually got his money back. Well, most of it. $250,000 went to taxes, and another $250,000 went to court fees. Moreover, during the trial he was caught drunk driving, probably contemplating his wrong decision to ask someone else to claim nearly $1 million and expecting him to give it all back. Still, the police gave him some good advice in the form of jailing and subsequently deporting him. So, regardless of all his mistakes, Jose Antonio at least got to keep over $250,000, which, I guess in Guatemala, can give you a decent home, a good car, a lovely wife, a side chick, a good business, and all in all, a wonderful life. Or all the coke you can snort. Denise Rossi. Would you divorce your marriage partner if you won the lottery? Keep in mind that they would be entitled to a percentage of the winnings. Denise Rossi knew that and was in a query when she won a $1.3 million lottery prize. She wanted to separate from her husband, Thomas, for quite some time, but she wasn't ready to take care of herself. Now, with $1.3 million, Denise was finally free. All she had to do was negotiate with Thomas to give him a small chunk of the money so they could divorce peacefully and go on their merry way. Naturally, she chose a far more complicated and wrong path. Rossi went to the lottery office, where she explained her situation. She didn't want to give her husband anything and asked for a way to get him out of the picture. The lottery office advised her to file for a divorce before her first check was in. She did, and without much hassle, she got Thomas's signature on the divorce papers, as he had also contemplated divorce for quite some time now. What a wonderful marriage indeed. For 2 years, her husband remained oblivious to the lotto winnings, as Denise had severed all connections with him. Finally, however, one day, Thomas received a letter addressed to Denise from the lotto office, which offered to get a lump sum buyout of her lottery ticket. Obviously, Thomas was happy for his ex and didn't do anything after finding out, except that he actually filed a lawsuit against her and the judge awarded him 100% of the lottery prize money. Moreover, Denise was forced to pay court fees, and finally, she ended up even more broke than before her divorce. The moral of the story is to lie to your ex-husband that you got the money after you got divorced, and offer him a small sum as a gesture. Then, even if he gets some lotto mail, he'd probably ignore it. Callie Rogers. Did you know that by 2005, the legal gambling age in the UK was 16? If you ever want to go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you get that odd question only a bookworm would know. Still, At the time, Callie Rogers couldn't wait to get 16 to try her luck. Now, why a child who recently had tea with her dolls in the backyard would have any interest in gambling is beyond me. Nonetheless, she went ahead, bought a ticket, and won. Callie won 1.9 million British pounds. A sum most people her age can't get even when playing Monopoly. Still, the young lady promised she wouldn't spend hastily and frivolously, and then she spent it all hastily and frivolously. As soon as she sniffed the green, or whatever color the pound is, she immediately went to have a boob job, worth 11.5k. Wait, wasn't she 16? Oh, come on, UK, what's wrong with you? Callie wasn't satisfied, so she went for a second one, after which she spent 300,000 on tattoos, makeup, and clothes. 16. She was 16. Why can she get tattoos? She spent about £250,000 on some trips to exotic places like Mexico and something you can actually expect more from a 16-year-old, Euro Disney in Paris. Then she wasted 350k on solicitors' fees, former unaddressed loans of friends and family, and expensive gifts to boyfriends who were with her only for her money. And probably her boob jobs. Finally, she spent 85,000 on a brand new top-of-the-line sports car, despite previously stating she won't go nuts with her spending. At least she made a few good investments, like purchasing a £96,000 home for her mum and a £180,000 bungalow. Still, by the end of the year, she was right back where she had started. Rogers admitted her behavior was way out of line, and she realized that a 16-year-old is too fragile-minded to have access to such money. As a result, she became an avid advocate for raising the gambling age to 18. Finally, in 2005, her wish became a reality. So now, how about raising the age limit for getting boob jobs and tattoos? Ryan McGee. While 16 is an age when everyone expects you're an idiot, Ryan McGee has no excuse, as he was 27 when he got his 6.4 million British pound lottery winnings. McGee went right ahead and bought some of the things we are accustomed to seeing rich people have. A luxury 5-bedroom mansion? Check. An indoor swimming pool? Check. A full champagne bar? Check. A brand new Ferrari 458 Italia? Of course. That's nothing out of the ordinary, as Ryan had a business before winning the lottery and managed to reach 7.7 million, guaranteeing him a spot on the 100 wealthiest young people list. Still, only 4 days after he bought his Ferrari, he went on a joyride in the snow with his summer tires on an icy road. This went just as well as one could expect. He slammed his luxurious car off the road. Unfortunately, this was only the beginning of McGee's trouble. A few months after the incident, his business started dissolving, followed by a filed divorce from his wife. After everything was finalized, Ryan had to sell his home and give half the money to his ex. 2 years later, McGee was caught driving a boring Ford Focus, which, unfortunately for him, was uninsured, and McGee was without a license. The cops arrested him instantly, and he filed for legal aid. This is typically for people who can't afford to get their own legal representation. You can imagine how well off the Irishman was by this time. There are many morals you can take from this story, but mainly, avoid being Ryan McGee at all costs. Oh, and when you get your Ferrari, don't crash it on the 3rd day. Wait for at least a week. Martin Tott. A generally good idea when playing the lottery is to remember you have a ticket. An even better idea would be not to throw your winning ticket away. Martin Tott and his wife had to learn this lesson the hard way. Firstly, the couple didn't realize they had won £3 million for nearly half a year. Now that's why people think that the lottery is a tax for stupid people. After 6 months, the news in the UK blew up that there was an unclaimed prize for 6 months. That's when it dawned on them. They looked for the winning ticket numbers and were a perfect match to the ones they always used. After frantically searching everywhere for their ticket, they couldn't find it. Luckily for them, you may claim a lost ticket in the UK and still get your winnings. Unluckily for them, you can do so only in the first 30 days after the ticket was purchased. So the winners were actually the big losers. The moral of the story is that no matter how complicated the spelling of your name, that doesn't make you intelligent. More often than not, it's the opposite. Evelyn Adams. What would you do if you won the lottery twice for 2 consecutive years? This was not a hypothetical question for Evelyn Adams. She first won $3.9 million in 1985. Then, a year later, she won another $1.4 million from the same lotto. At this time, she was considered the luckiest woman in the world. And for a brief moment there, this money seemed to have changed her life. Evelyn was adamant that she'd stop playing the lotto, as she didn't believe she could win a third time. Smart move, indeed. Then, she invested in several small businesses, including the small store from where she purchased the lotto tickets. A bit semantic, but I'll allow it. Now, if you've ever found yourself with a huge amount of money that fell from the skies, you have no aspirations and interests, and even less so entrepreneurial spirit, there's only one thing you can do. Go to the Atlantic City casinos. Adams did precisely that. Unsurprisingly, she lost everything on the slot machines in a couple of weeks. A few months later, without the needed refinancing, all her businesses went down as well, so she was right where she started. So, if you're looking for a moral here, don't be an addict. And if you are, at least waste your money on a more movie-worthy gambling game like poker. At least this way, after you're dry, you can sell the rights to your story to Netflix. It's obvious they have a desperate need for new ideas, and a story of a 2-time lottery winner who lost it all in a couple of weeks sounds at least a bit watchable. Gerard Muswagon. If we search for the saddest lottery-winning story, Gerard Muswagon definitely gets the gold. Well, not literally, since he'd probably lose that too and still end up as broke as a church mouse in a predominantly Muslim country. Gerard started spending frivolously when he won a $10 million prize in 1998. First, he bought fancy cars, new electronics, and homes for himself and his new, so-called, friends. Moreover, he hosted wild parties and often ended up in police custody as a result. He tried to get his life together after 3 years of non-stop joyrides, but his logging business went down relatively fast, and he continued to enjoy drugs and alcohol and loose women. Finally, after 7 years, Gerard has lost everything. He started working at a friend's farm for a minimum wage, while on the weekends, he served a 3-month sentence in jail. This shattered his reality, and soon after, he took his own life. The moral here is to never make new friends when you get rich. Instead, stick to the ones you had previously, and even reduce them. William Post. You don't need to be unlucky when you have absolutely no idea how to deal with money. William Post is the ideal example of this. It took him only 84 days to waste a $16.2 million lottery winning and accumulated a debt of nearly $6 million. This sounds like one of these movies where an eccentric rich uncle passes, but he wants to teach his estranged nephew the value of money, so they have to spend a colossal amount in a short time. Unfortunately for William Post, that wasn't a scripted scene, but real life. After getting his money, he bought a lavish yacht, a luxurious private jet, a restaurant in Florida, and, weirdest of all, a used car lot. Somehow, $16.2 million weren't enough for the man, so he took out a loan of $500K to buy a brand new home. The real problem, however, was that Post hadn't purchased his ticket on his own, but rather his girlfriend did. So a judge awarded her a third of the winnings. Still, by the time of the verdict, Post had nothing left. So now he was $5.4 million in debt. Moreover, before he managed to sell his property and give back the money he owed, Post was cuffed and jailed for an assault that occurred 6 years prior. Before he died, Post had 7 marriages in total, was back on food stamps, and was over $1 million in debt. So the moral here is not to go bonkers over your winnings and at least have them for 3 months before going bankrupt again. Jim Hayes. How do you turn from a millionaire into a bank robber practically overnight? Well, I guess Jim Hayes is the expert on that. The 35-year-old became a millionaire after purchasing a winning lottery ticket that guaranteed him $19 million. His first decision was a smart one. He opted for annual installments of nearly $700,000. That, however, remained his only wise decision. After that, he began losing money like crazy. He often overspent and soon began asking for portions of his next installment. In just a few years, he went bankrupt and couldn't afford even basic needs. So what would you do in such a situation? Get help? Start fresh over? Or rob a bank? Guess what Hayes did? Calling him stupid over his bank robberies would be an overstretch. After all, he did them perfectly and managed to steal over $40,000 before the feds caught up with him. Hayes was sentenced to 33 months in prison. Since 2020, he has been a free man, and as it seems, he has learned his life lessons. The moral here is not to rob banks, for any reason. That's not how you make money. Billy Bob Harrell. Billy Bob Harrell is a prime example of how money can change people. The modest Texan has won $31 million in the state lottery game. The first few months after winning, Billy was generous. Too generous, in fact. He started giving money to churches, church members, and practically anyone who would ask. Harrell settled debts to family members, friends, and even strangers, and in about a few months, he started enjoying people's attention a bit more than he should. By that time, he owned 6 homes and used none of them. All were for family and friends. Moreover, Harrell brought brand new luxurious cars for his wife and children. Soon after, he got a young girlfriend, which Billy showered with gifts. Understandably, his wife was not too happy. She filed for a divorce, and they split the rest of the money in half. Without the support of his wife, Billy went into a spiral of bad decisions, which cost him nearly $4 million. Finally, after he had lost everything he held dear and people stopped paying him attention because Billy was all out of cash, Harrell took a shotgun and did a Kurt Cobain in his ex-wife's bedroom. The moral here is to learn to play guitar like Cobain, not to shoot like him. Andrew Jackson Whitaker. The craziest lottery-winning story, however, goes to Andrew Jackson Whitaker. Unlike most others on this list, Whitaker was quite successful even before winning the lottery. He built a construction business worth $17 million on his own, making it even more surprising that things turned sour so quickly after he got his $315 million lottery winnings in 2002. The sad truth, though, is that Whitaker wasn't a doofus at all. He might have gotten a bit mad with money, but still, Andrew spent most of the winnings on charity. First, Whitaker gave about $30 million to church groups and another $14 million to establish a foundation that provided free food and clothing for low-income families. Next, he gave $44,000 to the clerk from who he bought the winning ticket and also presented him with a brand new Jeep Cherokee and a $123,000 home. That's when things got out of control. Whitaker bought a Lamborghini and started throwing money out on the street wherever he was driving. This led to 2 burglaries, in which he lost roughly $700,000. Still, these were only money. While Whitaker never lost his winnings, he lost everything else. His daughter, his granddaughter, and subsequently his wife. Despite having so much money, Whitaker was all alone in the end. The moral here is that money can buy a lot of luxuries and a lavish lifestyle, but it can't buy happiness. Those stories should be a good lesson for everyone who plays the lotto. Don't reach out for money you are not ready for. More often than not, they will bring you more misery than good. On the other hand, even if you are prepared, you can never be sure you won't end up crazy with cash. Still, if there's anything we learn from these losers, is that getting divorced or cheating after you've become rich is not a good idea. Stick to the people who loved you before you were rich, and have them help you cope with the huge change. What would you do if you ever get a cash boost in the millions? Let me know in the comments below. If you're wondering how other rich people are doing, just look at how the 10 wealthiest people live their lives.